My name's Hailey Carter, and I never imagined that one birthday dinner would be the night I finally broke free from my own family. They say blood is thicker than water, but I learned that some bloodlines only drain you dry. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. It started at my sister Emily's 22nd birthday dinner. The restaurant was fancy, the kind of place my mom loved showing off in. White tablecloths, flickering candles, waiters in suits. Everyone was smiling except me. I had this sinking feeling the night was going to turn sour, the way it always did whenever my mom had an audience. She was sitting across from me, glass of red wine in her hand, that usual judgmental look in her eyes. My Aunt Marlene sat next to her, already 2 glasses deep, laughing too loud at every fake story my mom told. My dad, as usual, just nodded along, pretending to be invisible. I'd paid for the dinner. All of it. The cake, the wine, even the tip. My mom didn't even bring her purse, she never did. And just as Emily blew out her candles, Mom leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "You know, Hailey, all that money we spent on you was a waste." For a second, I thought I misheard her. Everyone went quiet. The background chatter of the restaurant blurred out like static. I stared at her, trying to process it. "Excuse me?" I asked, my voice calm, too calm. She smiled, that smug little smile she always used when she wanted to humiliate me. "All those years of tuition, those clothes, that car we helped you with, and for what? You think you're better than us now? You think just because you moved out and got a job you're something special?" My chest tightened, but I didn't let her see it. I'd been through this too many times, the public insults, the guilt trips, the emotional games.
Tonight, though, something in me snapped.
I took out my phone, opened my banking app. My fingers didn't even tremble. I sent her $1, exactly one. Then I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Debt paid." The entire table froze. My Aunt Marlene nearly choked on her wine before laughing out loud. "Oh, please," she said between giggles. "Next time, don't even show up if you're gonna be that dramatic." I smiled, just a small, tight smile, and said, "Until tonight, Aunt Marlene." And I meant it. Dinner ended awkwardly. Emily tried to lighten the mood, but the damage was done. My mom didn't speak another word to me. My dad gave me that helpless, silent look, the same one he always gave when he wanted to say, "Please don't make this worse." But it was already worse. It had been for years. I went home that night to my small apartment, quiet, clean, peaceful. I sat on my couch, took a deep breath, and thought about every cruel thing my mom had said to me growing up. How she'd always compared me to Emily. How she'd used me for money, for emotional punching bags, for someone to blame when her own life went wrong. And then I realized I didn't owe them anything anymore. So I opened my laptop, logged into every joint account that still had my name on it, the family credit card, the savings account, even the Netflix subscription that I paid for.
Click. Freeze. Click.
Cancel.
Click. Delete.
Each click felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. I froze their cards. I shut down their shared phone plan, the one I was secretly paying for. I even canceled the insurance account my dad had begged me to keep just for emergencies. Then I turned off my phone. For the first time in my life, there was silence. And in that silence, I smiled. Because for the first time ever, my family finally couldn't reach me. That night, I fell asleep like a child. No guilt, no noise, no fake apologies echoing in my head.
Just peace.
But little did I know, cutting them off wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Because what happens when a toxic family realizes the one person they depended on is finally gone? The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls. 10 from my mom, 8 from Aunt Marlene, 5 from my dad. The rest, unknown numbers I didn't recognize, but I knew exactly who they were. Family friends, gossip carriers, people who wanted to check in. I didn't answer a single one. I poured myself coffee, sat on the balcony, and watched the city slowly wake up. For once, the world outside felt peaceful. Inside, my phone kept vibrating like a trapped bee. By noon, the text started. "Hailey, what the hell did you do? Mom says you stole money. We can't access the accounts.
Fix it now.
You're acting insane. That last one was from Emily, my sweet, innocent sister who had spent most of her life watching Mom tear me apart and never said a word. I typed a reply, then deleted it, then typed again. You all said I was a waste of money, so I stopped being one. I hit send and turned my phone face down. To understand why I did what I did, you'd have to know what it was like growing up as a Carter. From the outside, we looked like your typical American suburban family. White picket fence, family dinners, smiling Christmas photos. But behind closed doors, it was emotional warfare. My mom, Linda Carter, was the queen of manipulation. She knew exactly how to twist guilt into obedience. She'd say things like, "After everything we've done for you, you can't even do this one little thing?"
Or,
"Emily never talks back like this. Why can't you be more like her?" I learned early that love in our house came with price tags. If you didn't pay emotionally, financially, or otherwise, you didn't get any. When I turned 18, she convinced me to take out student loans in my name for the family's future. I was too young and too desperate for her approval to realize I'd just trapped myself in debt. She used my credit score to open cards, max them out, and when the bills came, she'd say, "It's under your name, Hailey. Be responsible." I paid them all. Every cent. When I finally got my degree and a decent job, she called it luck. When I helped pay their rent one bad winter, she called it duty. When I said I wanted to move out, she cried, saying, "So, now you think you're too good for your own family?" That was Linda's greatest weapon, guilt. But the older I got, the less it worked. I started saving secretly, transferring money into a personal account she didn't know existed. I learned to say no, though it always ended in a fight. And when she realized she couldn't control me anymore, she turned the rest of the family against me. Aunt Marlene would call me ungrateful. Emily would say, "You know how Mom gets, just ignore her." Dad would sigh and mutter, "You know how your mother is, Hailey." No one ever stopped her. So the night she called me a waste, that wasn't new. What was new was my answer. By the second day, the storm hit full force. My mom showed up at my apartment. She banged on the door, shouting my name like she owned the building. "Hailey, you think this is funny? You think freezing our accounts is a joke?" I didn't answer. I watched through the peephole as she kicked the door, her voice rising higher and higher. "I made you. Don't you dare turn your back on me, you ungrateful brat." I thought she'd never stop. Then suddenly, silence. I looked again, she was gone. But later that night, a message came from my dad. "Your mother's heart isn't doing well. She's stressed out. Just fix this and come home." The guilt hit me like a punch. For a moment, I almost gave in. Almost. Then I remembered the hospital visit from 3 years ago, the time I ended up there after a panic attack, and my mom said, "Well, maybe now you'll stop being so dramatic." She hadn't cared then. So why should I believe she cared now? That night, I wrote something in my journal, words I'd never said out loud before. Sometimes, walking away is the only revenge you'll ever need. But deep down, I knew my family wouldn't let me walk away quietly. They never did. And sure enough, the next morning, the real chaos began. Because if there's one thing my mom hated more than losing control, it was realizing I'd taken hers away for good. The next week felt like living inside a storm I'd started but couldn't stop. By Monday morning, my workplace inbox was flooded. Half the messages were routine office updates, the other half personal. "Hey, Hailey, your mom called here. Everything okay? Is it true you froze your parents' accounts?" My stomach sank. She had actually called my job. I knew my mother could be dramatic. But this was nuclear level. I called HR before she could reach anyone else. "If she calls again," I said quietly, "please don't engage. It's a private family issue." They understood. But humiliation burned like acid in my chest. My professional world, the one place I'd built far away from my family, suddenly wasn't safe anymore. And then came the Facebook posts. My Aunt Marlene, of course, started it. A picture of my mom crying on the couch, captioned, Some kids just forget who gave them everything. Shameful. Within hours, the comments were full of mutual friends, distant cousins, church people, all piling on. That's awful. Poor Linda. Kids today have no respect. Ungrateful brat. She'll regret it someday. They didn't even tag me, they didn't have to. Everyone knew who they were talking about. For the first time since that dinner, I felt something heavier than anger. I felt grief. Because in a twisted way, I had just lost my family, not to death but to choice. And part of me wondered if I'd gone too far. Then on Wednesday, I got a call from Emily. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Her voice was small. "Hailey, Mom's losing it. She says you ruined her life." "She ruined her own," I said. Emily sighed. "You don't understand. She's telling everyone you stole from her." I laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. Stole? The only thing I ever took from her was responsibility. She says she's going to the police. That one hit hard. The police? For what? I don't know, but she's serious. She said she's pressing charges for fraud. My heart dropped. Emily, there was no fraud. Those accounts had my name on them. I froze them legally. They were joint accounts because she needed my credit to open them. "I know," Emily whispered. "But Mom doesn't care what's true. She just wants you to hurt." I sat in silence. Because that line, "she just wants you to hurt," was the truest thing anyone had ever said about my mother. That night, I couldn't sleep. My apartment felt smaller, darker. I kept checking the window, half expecting flashing red and blue lights. But then something in me hardened. I remembered every insult, every humiliation, every time I'd been told to be grateful while cleaning up her chaos. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt angry and free. So I opened my laptop again. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. I gathered every document, every email, every transaction that proved what she'd done. The credit card she'd opened under my name, the loans she'd guilted me into signing, even text messages where she admitted it. I made a folder. I labeled it proof. Then I wrote one email. Short, sharp, and final. To Mom, Aunt Marlene, Dad, Emily. Subject: stop. Everything I did was legal. I owe you nothing. If you continue to spread lies, I'll defend myself publicly with proof. I'm done being your scapegoat. Hailey. I hit send. The next morning, there was silence. No calls, no messages, no posts. It was almost eerie. Then, late that evening, a text popped up from an unknown number. "You think you've won? You'll regret this, Hailey." No name, but I didn't need one. That was her. Something inside me clicked. Not fear this time, but resolve. She wanted a war?
Fine.
But I was done playing her victim. That weekend I did something bold. I went back home. Not to apologize, but to face them. Their house looked smaller than I remembered. The once pristine garden was overgrown, the paint on the porch peeling. My mom opened the door, eyes swollen, face twisted in that familiar expression, rage mixed with pride. "What do you want?" she spat. I looked her straight in the eye. Closure. She laughed bitterly. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're nothing without us." And that's when I smiled, calmly, like I'd rehearsed this moment my whole life. That's the difference, Mom. You need people to make you feel powerful. I don't. Her hand trembled. "You'll regret this, Hailey. Family is everything." Then maybe you should have acted like it. I turned to leave, and for the first time in my life, she didn't stop me. As I walked away, I heard her voice crack behind me, not with anger this time, but fear. "You're really never coming back, are you?" I didn't turn around.
No, Mom.
I already did once, and it almost killed me. I closed the door behind me, and that sound, the latch clicking shut, felt like the final note of a song I'd been trying to end for years. But the story wasn't over yet. Because when you take control away from people who've built their lives on controlling you, they don't just give up. They strike back harder. And I was about to find out just how far my mother would go. A week after that confrontation, I thought things had finally quieted down. No calls.
No texts.
No posts. Silence. But silence, I've learned, doesn't mean peace. Sometimes it's just the calm before the next hit. It came on a Thursday morning. I was halfway through a meeting when my phone buzzed, a private number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something told me to pick up. Hello? Hailey Carter? Yes. This is Detective Moore from the County Sheriff's Office. We've received a complaint regarding financial misconduct under your name. We'd like you to come in for a statement. My heart froze. Misconduct? Yes, ma'am. There's been an allegation of identity theft. It involves your mother, Linda Carter. I felt the world tilt. My own mother had actually filed a police report against me. I managed to keep my voice steady. I see. I'll be there. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from disbelief. I knew she could be cruel, manipulative, even vindictive. But this was nuclear. I called my lawyer, the one who'd helped me clean up my credit years ago. He reviewed the situation and said, Hailey, don't worry. You've got proof. If anything, this could backfire on her. Still, walking into that police station felt surreal. The officer at the desk recognized my name and raised an eyebrow. Oh, you're that Carter case.
Great.
So it had already made the rounds. Detective Moore was kind enough, but I could feel the weight of suspicion in the room. I handed him my folder, the same one labeled proof. Inside were months of documentation showing every account, every authorization, every message from my mom asking me to handle her bills. He read through it quietly, flipping pages, humming thoughtfully. Then he looked up. I'll be honest with you, Miss Carter. This doesn't look like theft. This looks like someone's angry. You stopped letting them use you. Relief washed through me. She's been doing this for years, I admitted softly. Using my name, my credit, and when I finally said no, she decided to destroy me. He nodded. We get cases like this more often than you'd think. You did the right thing keeping records. I left the station feeling lighter, but also sadder. Because now it wasn't just emotional. It was legal. There was no going back from this. By that evening, the news had spread. My mom was furious that her plan hadn't worked. She posted online again a long, venomous rant about ungrateful daughters and how money poisons family. It got hundreds of shares. But this time, something different happened. People began commenting in my defense. Some were friends, some were strangers who'd clearly had similar experiences. Parents like this are toxic. Good for her for standing up for herself. You can't guilt your kids forever. The tide was turning, and she hated it. That night, she sent me a message.
No threats, no screaming.
Just one sentence.
You've destroyed our family. I stared at it for a long time.
Then I typed back.
No, Mom.
You destroyed it when love became a transaction. Then I blocked her. A few days later, something strange happened. Emily showed up at my apartment. I hadn't seen her since the birthday dinner. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. For a few minutes, we just stood there in silence. Then she said, You were right. I frowned. About what?
About Mom.
About everything. Apparently, after my mom's false report backfired, bills started piling up. The cards were frozen, the utilities overdue, the car payments missed. Without me covering the gaps, the entire illusion of their stability collapsed. She's been calling everyone, Emily said, begging for help. Aunt Marlene stopped answering. Even Dad's staying with a friend. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because, she swallowed hard, tears in her eyes. I used to think you were cruel for cutting her off. Now I think you were brave. For the first time, I saw something real in Emily's face, not pity, not fear, but understanding. We sat together for hours, talking about everything we'd never said. About growing up in that house, about how we both learned to survive in different ways. At one point, she whispered, She always said you were selfish. But maybe you were just the only one who knew what freedom looked like. That line hit me deep, because she was right. I hugged her before she left. She promised she wouldn't take sides, but I could tell something in her had changed too. Maybe someday she'd find the courage to leave, just like I did. The next morning, I woke up to a new message, this time from my dad. Your mother's in the hospital. Stress-induced collapse. She's asking for you. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My heart twisted. After everything, the insults, the manipulation, the false police report, she was still my mother. Part of me wanted to go. To see her. To make sure she was okay. But then I remembered that birthday dinner. The smirk. The words. All that money we spent on you was a waste. And suddenly, the guilt faded. I wrote back one final message. I hope she finds peace. But I already have. Then I put my phone down and walked to the window. The sun was rising, bright, warm, steady. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's daughter, someone's scapegoat, someone's debt.
I was just me.
But even peace has a price, and I was about to find out what mine truly cost. 2 weeks passed since the hospital text. No calls. No updates. No more drama. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. For the first time in my life, I could wake up and not flinch at the sound of my phone. I could cook breakfast without waiting for someone to criticize me. I could breathe, really breathe, without feeling like I owed someone an apology for existing. That kind of freedom, you don't understand how valuable it is until you've spent your whole life begging for scraps of it. Still, every night before bed, I found myself scrolling through old photos. Birthdays. Holidays. Smiles that, now I could see weren't real. We'd posed like a happy family, but behind every grin was a lie, a bruise that never showed up on skin. I thought about going to the hospital. Not for her, for me, for closure. But then I realized I didn't need her to give me that anymore. Closure doesn't come from an apology. It comes from accepting that you may never get one. One morning, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew that handwriting anywhere, it was my mother's. I stood by the window, sunlight catching the edge of the envelope, debating whether to open it. My hands trembled, but curiosity won. Inside was a single page. Hailey,
I don't know what you expect from me.
maybe you want me to say I'm sorry, but I'm not going to pretend I understand you. You've always been too sensitive, too cold, too much. Still, the house is quiet without you. Emily barely speaks to me. Your father left. Maybe you got what you wanted. I hope you're proud.
Mom.
No, love. No, I miss you. Just blame, wrapped in bitterness. I laughed softly, because even an apology, she couldn't help being cruel. But then something strange happened. Instead of anger, I felt pity. For years, I'd seen her as the monster in my story. But now I saw the truth. She was just a broken woman who never learned how to love without control. And I finally realized I didn't have to hate her anymore. I just had to let her go. That night, I drove out of the city, past the suburbs, past the highway lights, until the sky turned black and endless. I parked by the edge of a quiet lake and stepped out. The air was cold, the water perfectly still. I took out that letter, tore it into tiny pieces, and watched the wind carry them away. Debt paid, I whispered again, but this time, it wasn't about money. It was about my peace. Because every time she said I owed her something, what she really meant was that she owned me. And now, for the first time ever, I was truly mine. Months passed. My life started to grow again, slowly, quietly. I got a promotion at work. I joined a book club. I even started dating someone who didn't flinch when I said the word boundaries. And one evening, as I was scrolling through YouTube, I stumbled across a random video titled, "Cutting Off Toxic Family, When Walking Away is the Real Revenge." The comments were full of people telling their stories, children, siblings, partners, all survivors of emotional blackmail disguised as love. For the first time, I realized my story wasn't rare. There were thousands of us.
So I decided to tell mine.
I started small, a post, a few lines, nothing dramatic. I walked away from my family after years of manipulation. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But peace is worth more than loyalty to pain. Within hours, the post blew up. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. People writing, "Thank you." I thought I was alone. That night, I cried, not because I was sad, but because I finally felt seen. A few months later, I got another message from Emily. Mom moved in with Aunt Marlene. She's different now. Quieter. I think losing everyone finally made her see herself. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. I don't know if she means it, but I thought you should know. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. Tell her I forgive her. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. Sometimes people think revenge means hurting the person who hurt you. But the truth is, a real revenge is healing. It's waking up one morning and realizing their chaos doesn't live in your head anymore. It's smiling without guilt. It's sleeping in silence and calling it peace. So, if you're listening to this, if you've ever been told you owe someone for your existence, remember this. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your silence. And sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's power. That night at my sister's birthday dinner, I sent my mother $1 and said, "Debt paid." But what I really meant was, I'm finally free. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. Hailey didn't take her mother's money back. She took her peace back. And when she said, "Debt paid," what she really meant was, I'm finally free. If someone's ever made you feel guilty for choosing yourself, remember this. You don't owe anyone your peace. And sometimes walking away is the real revenge. Headphone, this was Debt Paid, a story of silence, strength, and self-respect. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because next time, the revenge might be even colder.